Hi guys, welcome back to Two for Joy. Tonight we're going to be doing my post-transfer window Premier League predictions. If you reach the end of the video, please give me a like. If you like the content, please give me a sub. Let's get into it. So we'll start our way from the bottom, 20th, and work our way up. It's a tough one for this year. The three newly promoted teams. I've gone with Burnley in 20th. I think it's going to be a struggle between Leeds and Sunderland to stay up. I've gone for Wolves in 19th. I think they've had a real drop off and I just can't see them bringing it back after the sales they've made this window and the transfers they've brought in. I've gone for the Mackhams in 18th. As much as they've started well, I don't think Sunderland are going to cut it. I think there's a lot of transfers in that team. I feel like they've brought in too many players. While they've spent the big bucks, I think they've brought in too many players. And you may see, like Fulham had when they came up the first time, wholesale changes don't keep you here. And I think Leeds are going to cut it. I think they're going to finish 17th. So moving on to the 16th to 13th bracket, I've got West Ham finishing 16th. I think they've had a real drop off. I think there's major problems. Graham Potter, I think, has to go. We'll wait and see with them. Brentford in 15th. As we all know, Brentford having sold Mbeumo and Wissa to Newcastle and losing their manager and backroom staff. I think Keith Andrews got a real job on his hands there. I don't think they've started badly, but I can't see it continuing. So Brentford in 15th. 14th, I've got a bit of a wild card here. I actually think Brighton might have a drop off this season. So I've gone for Brighton in 14th. My 13th place, which again, it's a tough one, but Fulham. Fulham are who I've got in 13th place. I just don't feel they've bolstered on what they had last year. I think they're a good side on their day. They're a decent side at home at Craven Cottage, but I just don't think they've got it to move up the table. Having heard the news for my 12th to 8th picks, having heard the news of Nuno sacked from Notts Forest, I've got Ange finishing 12th. I can't see this being good for Notts Forest. I might be wrong. They might come good, but Ange does tend to have a good first season. I know he says he always wins something in his second season, but I think they're going to have a bit of a drop off. I think Chris Wood will probably see him through, but losing Alanga, they've made some big signings this window. They've spent a fair bit of money. I can't see why Nuno's been sacked, apart from the obvious speaking out in the media. But I thought he did a great job last season. I'm really surprised that they've let him go. I've got Bournemouth in 11th. I think Bournemouth, again, a little bit of a drop off to the start of the season. They're a good side, but I just can't see them breaking into that top 10. I have Man United in 10th. I think Amorim will be gone. I think they'll bring in a new manager around Christmas. I think this team, they've spent good money on good players at other clubs. It just has Man United written all over it. It's a graveyard for players' careers. I think the only person I've actually watched who I've thought has kind of come back into his own recently is Mason Mount. But they're not a great side, are they? So in 9th, I have Everton Football Club. I think under David Moyes, I think he'll get a tune out of these guys. I think they'll be tough to beat. I think they'll play the low block really well. If he can get them scoring goals, I think Everton could be a good one. At the end of last season, they looked like a real team. We'll wait and see. In 8th, I have Crystal Palace. Now, I think Crystal Palace and Oliver Glasner is probably one of the most underrated managers in the Premier League. I think this guy's got a real handle on selling players for good money and still being able to produce a team that can compete at the highest level. And I think he's a good cup manager. On a one-off game, I'd put Palace in there to mix it with anybody. I think they're a decent side. I rate Mateta. I rate the players they've got. Adam Wharton in midfield. Mark Gahey, whether he stays the full season. But I rate Mark Gahey. I think they've got a decent spine to that team. So moving on to the Conference League spot of 7th. I think it'll be Aston Villa this year. I actually think Aston Villa probably haven't done the business in the window that they wanted to. I understand they've had problems with PSR and they've kind of been hamstrung in a similar way to Newcastle have in previous windows. But I think Aston Villa, they're not a bad side. They're on their day, they can beat anybody. I think they've got some good strength through the spine of that team. I think Aston Villa is a solid 7th choice. My 6th and 5th spots, and I think this could be either way round, but I think Tottenham will finish 6th. I think Thomas Frank is an astute signing. I think they've not made a bad start to the Premier League. I think he will change them. They will definitely be more solid tactically, and they look like they've really shored up that defence, which is a vast improvement. I have Newcastle to finish 5th. I think it's doable with the wholesale changes we've made. I think obviously we'll take it. I think we'll be a slow burner. I think it'll take probably till start of November before we really hit our stride. But I'm hoping we'll come into it through the back end of the season. My only hope is that we don't try and fight on all fronts with the same first team over and over again and end up with the catastrophic injuries we had with our first Champions League campaign under Eddie. But I feel we've made some solid signings. I feel we're moving in the right direction. And I think Wissa and Voltemada, whichever way Eddie decides to play it, I'll do another video on where I think our tactics will go. But I think, we've got a real chance of being right up there this year. Moving on to 4th to 2nd. And I'm a little bit tired. I struggled with this. But I'm going to go with Chelsea in 4th. I think they're a bit of a wild card, Chelsea. They've got some really young players. I think Maresca's not a bad manager. I think they could come good if João Pedro comes good. They've had a bit of a struggle with Liam Delap being forced out through injury, but there's ample players in that squad, and they have so much depth. But I think it's more they need to get a steady 15, 16 players performing rather than keep swapping out as to 2 squads, one for Europe, one for the Premier League. I don't think that works. I think you end up having players never quite hitting the form they should do. So, yeah, I think Chelsea will finish 4th. I've got Arsenal down to finish 3rd. I think the Gyökeres signing is a 50-50. I think he'll get goals, but I don't think he's as complete a striker as they think he is. I actually think the Kai Havertz injury is probably a big one for Arsenal. He's a big loss. I'm not a fan of Kai Havertz as a player. I think he's horrid to play against, but I'm sure if he was in our team, I'd be cheering him on. But I think Arsenal will struggle this year. I think if they have a few injuries in key areas, I think there's not the depth in that squad that they think there is. Great midfield, but it's the wings that really let them down. I think if Bukayo Saka's not playing, Martinelli, Madueke, Trossard, I just don't see him doing 2nd again. I'm going to go with 3rd. I've got Man City to come in 2nd. Now, my rationale for this, I'm torn between City and Liverpool as to who comes top spot. There is something with City where they start badly and they finish so strong. And I think the transfer window they've had, if these players settle, this could quickly be swapped on its head and City could be top spot. I think Gianluigi Donnarumma being brought in as the new goalie is a wonderful piece of business. I personally think he's the best keeper in world football, and not by a shortfall. I think he's better than Alisson. I think the guy is he's a monster in goal. I also think the additions of Reinders in midfield and Shirky, I think they're good solid signings. I'm pretty sure that if they can get Rodri back in that midfield with Reinders, City could fly up the table pretty quickly. But Liverpool in top spot. Now, I feel that, I hate to say it, they've got a great side. But I feel that defence is there's still problems there. I obviously don't know enough about the young Italian centre-back they've signed. But I do think Virgil van Dijk looks a yard off the pace this year. And Konate, while he's played well on international duty, I just don't think that guy's got it. I don't think he's got what it takes to cut it at the top of the Premier League. And this flurry of attacking players, I actually think Liverpool should have signed 2 fullbacks that can defend with an option to go forward, rather than 2 fullbacks that can attack with an option to defend. Obviously, they've got talent in the midfield. While I don't feel that Wirtz is quite as good a player, I'm sure he'll come good in years to come. But I feel McAllister and Szoboszlai are better players than Wirtz is. I think it's a holy price tag for Wirtz to come in at 116 million. And the same, I actually feel like they may have overpaid for Isak. And I know that sounds crazy when I sat here saying Isak's a £150 million player because that's what we wanted to sell him for. But I think there's going to be some disharmony with regards to that front line, because there's big names on big wages and nobody wants to be sat on the bench. And I don't see how you can bring Isak in as a starting striker with Ekitike there playing like he's playing. I think he's looked really sharp to the start of the season. I think actually Alex Isak could be a bench warmer for the first or the next 5 or 6 games. I'm sure Liverpool fans will tell me they're going to play Ekitike and Isak together, whether that's Ekitike goes out on the left or Isak goes out on the left. But I actually think the setup with Cody Gakpo playing the left-hand side, Mo Salah on the right-hand side, Ekitike through the centre, and then, you know, the option to bring Isak off the bench is obviously a great one. He's a fantastic footballer. But having not played pre-season, not starting for his national team, and then coming off the bench and not looking great, to be honest. I know he's going to have to get his fitness back up, but I just can't see him coming and taking that away from Ekitike. At the minute, I think the boy's on fire. I think, you know, he's got the right attitude to suit the Liverpool fan base. They like him. He fits into the mould of the slot ball. But yeah, so I'll post up a graphic of where we are. A quick run through from the bottom to top again. Burnley last, Wolves 19th, Sunderland 18th, Leeds in 17th, West Ham in 16th, Brentford in 15th, Brighton in 14th, Fulham in 13th, Notts Forest in 12th, Bournemouth in 11th, Man United at mid-table 10th, Everton in 9th, Crystal Palace in 8th, Villa 7th, Tottenham 6th, Newcastle 5th, Chelsea 4th, Arsenal 3rd, Man City and Liverpool. I may well swap that, but I think it'll be City in 2nd and Liverpool top. If you agree or disagree, let me know in the comments. If you've liked the video, if you've made it to the end, please hit the like button. I'm trying to grow a new fan base. Big shout out to all you guys who've subbed, and hopefully I will see you guys in the next one.